That pen has a listening device. The words left the girl's lips like a spark in dry air. The conference room froze. Conversations cut off. The faint hum of the air conditioner was suddenly too loud. At the long glass table, a dozen executives stared, unsure if they had heard correctly. The billionaire, Mr. Harlow, blinked once, still holding the silver pen between his fingers. He looked down at it, puzzled, then back at the child who had spoken. She was standing near the corner of the room, small enough that her reflection barely reached the edge of the glass wall behind her. Her voice had not been loud, but it carried through the silence like a siren. "What did you say?" he asked, his tone soft, cautious. She took a step closer, hands clasped in front of her chest. Her dark braids framed a face that was calm but firm. "That pen," she repeated, pointing with one trembling finger. "It can hear you. Someone is listening." A soft laugh rippled from the far side of the table. Miss Lang, his personal assistant, crossed her arms. "She is just playing," she said. "It is a souvenir, remember? The design is modern. It looks technical." Her smile was polite, practiced, but her eyes flicked briefly to the pen. Mr. Harlow frowned. He turned the object in his hand. Under the white lights, something caught his eye, a small red glint near the clip, like the blink of a heartbeat. "That is odd," he murmured. He pressed the pen lightly against the table. The light blinked again. The girl watched every movement. Her voice shook now, not from fear but urgency. "I saw her give it to you this morning. She said it was special." Lang stiffened. "I give him gifts all the time," she said quickly. "Do not frighten her, Mr. Harlow. Children imagine things." But Mr. Harlow was no longer listening. His pulse had begun to throb in his neck. The quiet in the room turned heavy, like the moment before thunder. A single thought raced through his mind. Who would want to listen to him, and why? He lifted his gaze to the girl again. "What is your name?" he asked. "Leah," she answered softly. "My mom cleans here. She told me not to touch things that blink red, so I told you instead." The simplicity of her words struck deeper than any accusation. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to him without fear or motive. He nodded slowly, still staring at the pen. Outside the glass wall, the city skyline shimmered in afternoon light. Inside, no one moved. Lang's reflection stood rigid in the background, arms crossed tighter, eyes unreadable. Mr. Harlow placed the pen gently on the table. The red light blinked once more, steady and deliberate, as if confirming the truth. In that suspended second, everyone realized that the smallest voice in the room had just shattered the illusion of safety. The billionaire's hand trembled slightly. The child's whisper still echoed between the glass walls, and the pen kept blinking. The meeting that had started with confidence now sat under a cloud of silence. The silver pen still rested on the long glass table, its red light pulsing like a heartbeat. Mr. Harlow did not speak right away. He looked from the pen to the faces of the executives, then to Leah, who stood quietly by the door. "It must be a reflection," said Miss Lang with a small laugh that did not sound natural. "The metal catches light from the window." But the others were not laughing. The tension in the room was thick enough to slow the air. "Mr. Harlow straightened his tie and said calmly, "Meeting adjourned. I need a moment." His voice was steady, but something in it made everyone rise without argument. Papers rustled, chairs scraped, and in less than a minute, the large conference room was nearly empty. Only Leah, Mr. Harlow, and Miss Lang remained. "Miss, you can go back to your mother now," Miss Lang said sharply. "You have caused enough trouble." Leah hesitated. Her small hand twisted the hem of her dress. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I just did not want anyone to get hurt." Mr. Harlow's eyes softened for a moment. "You did nothing wrong," he said. "You did what you thought was right." Then he turned toward Lang. "Run a quick check on the pen. Humor me." Lang's smile froze. "Sir, I do not think that is necessary." I do," he replied, voice firm but calm. Lang reached across the table, her nails clicking against the polished glass. "Fine," she said, lifting the pen. Her hand trembled slightly. She pressed the clip. The red light blinked again, steady, deliberate. Leah gasped. "That is not a reflection," Mr. Harlow said quietly. Lang placed the pen down too quickly. It rolled to the edge of the table, clinking against the glass. Technology these days, she said, forcing a laugh. Maybe it came with a sensor for writing pressure, but her voice cracked on the last word. Mr. Harlow turned to Leah. Can you tell me exactly what you saw this morning? Leah nodded. I was waiting for my mom. She cleans the top floor early before people come. I saw her. She pointed gently toward Lang. Give you the pen, she said. It will capture every word. And she smiled. I thought that was strange. A pen is for writing, not listening. Lang opened her mouth, but Mr. Harlow raised a hand. That is enough. His tone was quiet but final. Leah took a step back, unsure if she had done something wrong. Mr. Harlow noticed and gave her a reassuring nod. Thank you, Leah. You may wait outside for your mother. There is hot chocolate in the break room down the hall. She looked surprised. Really? Yes, really. His mouth lifted in a small, tired smile. Tell the receptionist I said so. Leah turned and left the room, her small shoes tapping softly against the marble floor. When the door closed, the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Mr. Harlow picked up the pen himself. He examined the clip, the tip, the tiny seam near the middle. The design was too refined, too intentional. Where did you buy this? He asked. Lang exhaled slowly. A supplier in Berlin. Corporate gift. Perfectly harmless. He looked at her without blinking. Do you have the receipt? She hesitated, then said, I can get it. Do that, he said. Now. Lang gathered her bag, her movements quick but careful, and walked out. When the door shut behind her, Mr. Harlow sat back in his chair and let out a long breath. Through the glass walls, he could see the city stretching to the horizon, towers, highways, 1,000 lives moving in perfect rhythm. But in this room, time had stopped. He stared at the pen again. The light no longer blinked, as if it knew it was being watched. He pressed the intercom button on the table. Security, he said. Send the tech team to my office immediately. Within minutes, 2 technicians arrived with small equipment cases. They wore simple uniforms, their faces focused and professional. One of them, a woman with short hair and quick hands, took the pen carefully with a cloth. She placed it under a small handheld scanner. After a few seconds, the device beeped. A tiny red waveform appeared on its screen. She looked up. Sir, there is a transmitter inside this pen. It is active. Mr. Harlow's shoulders stiffened. Can you trace it? Not directly, she said. But it is sending short encrypted bursts. Someone out there is definitely receiving data. He glanced toward the closed door where Lang had left. His jaw tightened. Seal the floor, he said, and keep this quiet for now. The technician nodded and left. Mr. Harlow sat alone for a long moment. The city outside continued its rhythm, cars moving like veins of light. Inside the glass room, the billionaire pressed his hands together and thought of the girl's whisper. That whisper had been small, almost fragile, yet it had cut through lies, silence, and the arrogance of power. Down the hall, he could hear faint laughter, the kind that came from the break room. Leah's voice, bright and unaware, mingled with the soft hum of a vending machine. It reminded him of something he had not felt in years. Trust. He looked again at the silver pen, now lying motionless under the white light. The red blink was gone, but its memory remained like a heartbeat in his chest. For the first time that day, Mr. Harlow understood that truth does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Morning light poured through the tall glass windows of Harlow Industries. The city outside buzzed with its usual rhythm, unaware that something fragile and dangerous was unfolding in one of its highest towers. Mr. Harlow stood near the conference table, staring at the silver pen that now lay sealed inside a clear evidence bag. The red light no longer blinked, but its silence seemed louder than before. He had not slept. All night, his mind replayed the girl's voice, quiet, steady, impossible to ignore. That pen has a listening device. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the reflection of her small face in the glass wall, brave enough to speak when no adult dared. The door opened softly. Leah and her mother entered, led by a security guard. The mother, dressed in a faded blue uniform, looked nervous, clutching a cleaning cloth in her hands. Leah stood close beside her, her braids tied neatly this time, her eyes still alert. Mr. Harlow turned toward them. Thank you for coming, he said gently. I owe your daughter an apology, and perhaps a thank you. The woman shook her head quickly. Sir, she did not mean trouble. She just speaks her mind sometimes. And that, Mr. Harlow said, is a quality we could use more of. He gave a small smile to Leah. Do you remember exactly what you saw yesterday morning? Leah nodded. You were talking to the lady with the red scarf. She gave you that pen before the meeting. She said something like, "It will capture every word." Then she laughed. I did not think it was funny. Mr. Harlow felt the weight of her words. Every syllable carried a piece of truth he had overlooked. Did you tell anyone else? Leah shook her head. Only my mom. She told me to stay quiet. She said rich people do not like being told secrets. The mother looked embarrassed, but Mr. Harlow's smile was kind. Sometimes the truth comes from the smallest voices, he said, and sometimes that is exactly what the rich need to hear. A soft knock came from the door. One of the security technicians entered, holding a tablet. Sir, we found something. He placed the device on the table and tapped the screen. A waveform appeared, thin lines of recorded sound, faint but unmistakable. We recovered partial audio transmissions from the pen. It was broadcasting short bursts every 5 minutes to an external receiver. The signal leads to a network based in Singapore. Mr. Harlow's brow furrowed. Can you tell when it started? 3 weeks ago, the technician said. Most of the data is encrypted, but some segments contain keywords, board votes, acquisitions, and private meeting times. Leah's mother gasped quietly. Mr. Harlow exhaled slowly, rubbing the bridge of his nose. So it has been spying on us for nearly a month. The technician nodded. Yes, sir. Whoever placed this device knew exactly what they were doing. Mr. Harlow looked at Leah again. You have saved us from something much larger than you realize. Leah tilted her head. I just saw what was there. People forget to look. Her words made him pause. He saw, in her calm expression, a mirror of something he had lost over years of business and noise clarity. The technician cleared his throat. Sir, there is one more thing. The chip has a serial number. It matches a batch from a company connected to Miss Lang's brother. Mr. Harlow straightened. Is that confirmed? Yes, sir. He nodded once. Thank you. Keep this information between us for now. When the technician left, silence filled the room again. The city hummed faintly beyond the glass. Leah looked at Mr. Harlow with concern. Are you mad at her? He shook his head. No, Leah. Anger is easy. Understanding is harder. Leah's mother placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. Sir, we should go if that is all right. We still have our morning shift. Mr. Harlow nodded. Of course, but before you go, he walked to his desk and took a small card from a drawer. This is for you, Leah. It is a pass for the employee library on the first floor. You can come any time you want. You said you like to read, correct? Leah's face lit up. Yes, sir. I like stories about brave people. He smiled. Then you will find many of them there. They thanked him softly and left. When the door closed, Mr. Harlow turned toward the glass again. The morning sun was brighter now, reflecting off buildings like silver mirrors. Somewhere out there, someone had tried to steal his company's secrets, but a child's whisper had stopped them. He picked up the evidence bag once more. The pen looked harmless, elegant, beautiful even. But beneath that surface had lived deception, and he wondered how many other lies wore the same polish. He pressed the intercom button. Security, find Miss Lang. Tell her I want to see her immediately. Yes, sir, came the voice through the speaker. Mr. Harlow set the pen back on the table and folded his hands. His reflection in the glass looked older than it had the day before, yet there was something steadier in his eyes' resolve. In the hallway, Leah's laughter echoed faintly, blending with the sounds of vacuum machines and rolling carts. It reminded him that truth had walked into his empire wearing sneakers and courage. For the first time in a very long while, Mr. Harlow felt something close to peace. The investigation had only begun, but the direction was clear. Truth, he thought, may start as a whisper, but once spoken, it does not go silent again. The afternoon sun had shifted by the time Miss Lang walked into Mr. Harlow's office. The once bright light of the city now fell in long golden stripes across the glass floor, dividing light from shadow. She carried herself with the same polished confidence she always had, but her smile was tighter, more deliberate. Mr. Harlow stood near the window with his back turned. The pen inside its evidence bag sat on the table between them, small yet powerful, like a single spark that could burn down an empire. "Close the door," he said. She obeyed, the soft click echoing like a closing verdict. "You wanted to see me, sir?" she asked lightly. He turned. "Yes, sit down." She hesitated but did as told, crossing her legs and setting her leather bag beside the chair. "Is something wrong?" Mr. Harlow's eyes did not waver. "I had our tech department run a full trace on that pen you gave me." Her expression did not change. "And it contained a transmitter," he said. "Active, broadcasting. The signal was traced to a network that matches your brother's security firm." For a long moment, she did not speak. Then she gave a soft laugh, the kind that was meant to deflect, not convince. "That is absurd. My brother runs logistics, not surveillance." "I am aware," he said, "but the serial number of the chip inside this device matches one of his shipments. I checked twice." The mask of her smile faltered. "You think I did this?" "I think," he said slowly, "that someone I trusted wanted me to keep quiet. And you were the one person who could have placed that pen within reach." "Oh." The air between them thickened. Outside, a helicopter passed by, its low hum vibrating through the glass. Miss Lang leaned forward, voice trembling slightly. "Do you hear yourself? You are listening to a child, a janitor's daughter, over me, over years of loyalty." Mr. Harlow studied her face, the lines of anger and fear beginning to replace the calm. "Sometimes the truth comes from where we least expect it," he said quietly. Leah had no reason to lie. You, however, had every opportunity. Her eyes flashed. "You are throwing away your company's most loyal partner because of a coincidence." "Coincidences do not blink red," he replied. Silence again. The sound of the air conditioner filled the room, steady and cold. Finally, Miss Lang rose. "I think I should speak to my lawyer." "You will," he said, "after the authorities finish their review. Until then, you are suspended." Her jaw tightened. "This is not over." "It rarely is," he said, "but it is over for today." She turned sharply and left, the door closing hard behind her. For several seconds, Mr. Harlow did not move. The city stretched before him, vast and indifferent. He pressed a hand against the glass, feeling the faint pulse of his own reflection staring back. The intercom beeped softly. "Sir," said the security chief's voice, "should we escort her out?" "Yes," he said, quietly, "no press, no noise." "Understood." Oh, when he turned back to the table, the pen seemed smaller now, powerless without deceit to feed it. But the damage it had caused still lingered like static in the air. A knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Leah again, peeking around the doorframe. She held a small cup of hot chocolate, her fingers wrapped around it carefully. "My mom said you might be tired," she said softly. "This helps." Mr. Harlow was startled, then smiled. "You are very thoughtful, Leah. Thank you." She walked closer and placed the cup on the edge of his desk. Her eyes darted toward the clear bag that held the pen. "Is the bad thing gone?" He looked at the pen, then back at her. "Not completely," he said. "But we found where it was hiding." Leah nodded as if she understood more than he expected. "Mom says lies are like dust. They look small, but if you do not clean them, they cover everything." He let out a short, quiet laugh. "Your mom is a wise woman." "She says you looked sad yesterday," Leah continued. "I think maybe you miss trusting people." Her words struck him like gentle truth. "Maybe I do." Leah tilted her head. "Then you can start again, maybe with us." Her innocence was disarming. He knelt slightly to meet her gaze. "You are not afraid of grown-ups, are you?" She smiled. "Only the ones who stop listening." He nodded slowly. "Then I will try not to stop." Leah glanced at the window, watching the sky begin to shift to evening gold. "You have a pretty view up here," she said. "It used to make me feel powerful," he admitted. "Now it just reminds me how far people can fall without noticing." She looked thoughtful, then asked, "Will you be okay?" He took a deep breath. "Yes, I think so, because someone reminded me that the truth is still worth hearing." Leah smiled, the kind of smile that held both kindness and certainty. "Then that means you are already okay." He stood again and looked out at the skyline. The city was changing colors, glass towers turning amber under the setting. Sunday. When he looked back, Leah was already walking toward the door. She turned once more. "Mr. Harlow?" "Yes?" "You should keep the pen," she said, "so you remember what not to forget." He watched her leave, the sound of her footsteps fading down the hall. For the first time in years, Mr. Harlow felt something unfamiliar in his chest, hope that had been buried under wealth and noise. The silver pen lay motionless under the white light, but its lesson was still alive. The truth had a voice, and sometimes it came from the smallest whisper in the biggest room. The next morning arrived with a cold rain that painted the city in shades of gray and silver. Inside Harlow Industries, the air was still, almost too clean, as if the building itself was trying to forget what had happened. Mr. Harlow stood by his office window, watching water slide down the glass in perfect vertical lines. Each drop reminded him of something he could not control. He had barely slept. The meeting with the legal team had lasted until dawn. Miss Lang was gone, escorted quietly from the premises, her access revoked. The pen, now evidence in a federal case, sat locked in a vault 2 floors below. Yet despite the careful control, there was a weight in the room that order could not erase. A soft knock broke his thoughts. Leah stood in the doorway again, her sneakers leaving tiny wet marks on the marble. She was holding a folded piece of paper that looked like it had been written in pencil. "Good morning, Mr. Harlow," she said politely. "My mom said you might be too busy, but I wanted to give you something." He turned, surprised to see her so early. "Good morning, Leah. What is that?" She walked closer and placed the paper on his desk. "It is a drawing. It is not very good, but I made it last night." He unfolded it carefully. The picture showed a tall building that looked like his office tower. In front of it stood a small girl and a tall man, both drawn with uneven but honest lines. Between them was a tiny silver pen, drawn with a bright yellow halo. He smiled for the first time that day. "This is wonderful. What does the light mean?" Leah tilted her head. "It means truth. My teacher says light makes shadows go away." He looked at the drawing again, his throat tightening. She is right. That is a good teacher. Leah's eyes followed his, and she noticed the fatigue on his face. "You look tired," she said gently. "Do grown-ups get scared too?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Leah, especially when they realize how close they came to losing what matters most." "What matters most?" she asked. He looked out the window. "Trust, and the people who give it to you." Leah nodded thoughtfully. "My mom says trust is like glass. Once it cracks, you can still see through it, but it is never the same." Her words landed with quiet force. He wondered how many years he had spent hiding behind polished glass and empty smiles. He walked to a cabinet near his desk and opened it. Inside was a small box. He pulled it out and set it in front of Leah. "Do you know what this is?" She shook her head. "It is a security key," he explained. "It opens the door to my company's innovation lab downstairs. I want to show you something." Her eyes widened, but she followed him without hesitation. They took the private elevator down, the hum of machinery filling the silence. When the doors opened, they stepped into a wide, white room filled with prototypes, screens, and models. "This is where ideas are born," Mr. Harlow said. "Every invention you see here started as a whisper, just like yours." Leah walked slowly between the tables, her small hand brushing the edge of a holographic display. "It is like magic," she said softly. "Not magic," he replied. "Just people trying to make the world a little safer." They stopped at a table near the center. On it sat a new pen, sleek and metallic, but without any light or transmitter. Beside it was a small engraving plate. Leah read the words out loud. "Truth does not need to hide." Mr. Harlow nodded. "This will be our new company motto. It is what you reminded me of." Leah smiled shyly. "You do not need to put my name on it." He chuckled. "You are very humble for someone who saved $1 billion company." She grinned. "My mom says money cannot buy courage." He looked at her, genuinely moved. "Your mom is a very wise woman. Would you tell her that I would like to see her later today? I have something to discuss." "Okay," Leah said. "I will tell her." Before they left, she turned back to the table, her eyes resting on the engraved words again. "Does this mean no one will lie here anymore?" He sighed, then answered carefully. "It means we will try not to. People are not perfect, Leah, but truth gives them a chance to be better." She nodded as if that made sense. "Then that is enough." Back in his office, after Leah left, Mr. Harlow sat with the drawing beside his keyboard. The small halo around the pen seemed to glow even in the gray light of the storm. He realized that the child had done more than expose deceit. She had rebuilt something inside him that had quietly collapsed long ago, the belief that goodness still mattered. He pressed the intercom button. "Security," he said. "Send maintenance to the front lobby. I want a new plaque installed under the company name. It will read, 'Truth does not need to hide.'" "Yes, sir," came the reply. He leaned back, listening to the soft hum of rain against glass. For the first time in many years, the sound did not remind him of isolation but of cleansing. Far below, in the lobby, Leah and her mother stepped out of the elevator. She looked back once toward the high window of his office, waving a small hand before leaving. Mr. Harlow lifted his hand in return, though she could not see it. Then he whispered to himself, the same way she had whispered truth into his world only days before. "Thank you, Leah," he said softly, "for teaching me to listen again." Outside, the rain slowed, and for a brief moment, sunlight broke through the clouds, reflecting across the glass walls like liquid gold. It was as if the city itself was exhaling, grateful for a truth finally uncovered. The morning after the storm, the sky above the city was clean and pale blue. Sunlight stretched over the towers of Harlow Industries, glinting against the wet glass like 1,000 tiny mirrors. Inside the building, everything appeared calm again. Yet for Mr. Harlow, calm no longer meant peace. It meant reflection. He arrived early, earlier than anyone else. His shoes echoed in the empty hallway as he walked toward his office. When he entered, the first thing he noticed was the drawing Leah had given him. It was still on his desk, slightly curled at the edges. He touched it gently, the small pencil marks of truth now etched into his daily routine. But when he sat down to begin the day's work, he noticed something strange. The security key he had used for the innovation lab the day before was gone. The small silver card was no longer in his drawer. He frowned. He remembered locking it before leaving. He pressed the intercom. "Security," he said. "Check the access log for the innovation lab. Has anyone entered since last night?" A moment later, a voice replied. "Yes, sir. There was one entry early this morning. The system shows your own ID, but the timestamp is 4:30 a.m. Harlow's brow furrowed. "That is not possible. I was at home at that hour." The line went silent. "Would you like us to review the camera footage?" "Yes," he said. "Send it to my monitor." A few seconds later, a video appeared on his screen. The grainy black and white feed showed the hallway outside the lab. The timestamp confirmed the time. A tall figure in a suit used an access card, entered the lab, and left 2 minutes later carrying a small metallic box. The face was not visible, but the walk, the posture, it was unmistakably Miss Lang. Mr. Harlow exhaled slowly, disbelief mixing with anger. "How did she get back inside?" Security replied. "We are checking, sir. It appears her access was reactivated through a secondary account last night. We are tracing who approved it." "Do that immediately," he said, "and alert the authorities." When the call ended, he stared at the frozen image of Miss Lang on the monitor. Her shadow stretched long across the hallway floor like a remnant of the deception he thought was gone. He pressed his palms together and closed his eyes for a moment. "It seems truth is never finished," he whispered. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was an internal call from Leah's mother. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "Mr. Harlow, I am so sorry to bother you. I cannot find Leah. She left for school this morning, but her teacher said she never arrived." His heartbeat quickened. "When did you last see her?" "About an hour ago," the woman said. "She said she was going to stop by the building first. I thought she just wanted to say hello to you." Mr. Harlow stood immediately. "Stay calm," he said. "I will find her." He hung up and called security again. "Check all cameras on the ground floor and around the lobby. A little girl, about 8 years old, may have entered the building this morning." "Yes, sir," came the quick reply. Minutes passed that felt like hours. Then the voice returned. "We have her, sir." She entered through the east side at 7:25 a.m. She was carrying a backpack and went toward the service elevators. After that, the feed cuts out. "Cuts out?" Harlow repeated, his voice tight. "Yes, sir. The cameras in that section stopped recording at the same time." 0. Harlow's mind raced. Only one person knew how to disable that system, Miss Lang. He grabbed his phone and contacted the police, giving them the full situation. Then he took the private elevator down himself, ignoring the security team's protest. The service corridor was quiet, except for the distant hum of machinery. Water dripped from a leaking pipe, echoing through the metal walls. He walked carefully, scanning every corner, the smell of cleaning products mixed with cold steel. Then, near the end of the corridor, he heard a sound: soft, steady breathing. "Leah?" he called gently. A small voice answered. "Mr. Harlow?" He turned the corner and saw her sitting on the floor beside a supply cart, hugging her backpack tightly. Her face was calm, not afraid. "Leah," he said, kneeling down. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, sir. I was hiding." "Hiding from what?" "There was a lady here earlier," she said quietly. "She dropped this." Buh. From her backpack, she pulled out the missing security key. "I found it on the floor." She looked angry and was talking to someone on the phone. I heard her say, "He will not win." Then she left through the back door. Mr. Harlow felt a surge of relief and admiration all at once. "You did the right thing, Leah. You were very brave." She looked up at him. "I did not want her to take something that was not hers." He smiled. "And because of that, we might be able to stop her." He pressed his phone and called security again. "She was here. I have the key. Seal the back exit and alert the police immediately." When he hung up, he turned to Leah. "Let us get you back upstairs. Your mother must be worried." As they rode the elevator up, Leah looked at him with curious eyes. "Do bad people ever stop being bad?" He hesitated before answering. "Sometimes they do. But not because they have to. Because someone gives them a reason to." Leah thought for a moment. "Like a second chance?" "Yes," he said, "exactly like that." When they reached the lobby, her mother ran forward, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks. She knelt and hugged Leah tightly. Mr. Harlow stood nearby, the silver key still in his hand. He realized the girl had once again protected something far greater than property. She had protected what he had almost forgotten: the belief that goodness was stronger than deceit. Outside, the rain from the night before had dried, leaving the world washed clean. And in that light, Mr. Harlow understood that every truth uncovered was not an ending, but the beginning of something honest, something he would spend the rest of his life trying to protect. By the next day, the story had already left the walls of Harlow Industries and found its way into every corner of the city. News channels ran the headline in bold letters: "Corporate espionage exposed inside Billionaire's empire." The photograph of the silver pen, taken by someone inside the building, appeared on countless screens. Every anchor repeated the same line: how a little girl's whisper had uncovered a listening device and possibly saved an entire corporation. Mr. Harlow watched the reports from his office. He had expected relief. Instead, he felt a strange heaviness in his chest. Fame, even in truth, had a cost. The press was circling, the stockholders were restless, and the company he had spent decades building was now a public spectacle. His phone vibrated. It was a message from Leah's mother. "We are okay, but there are people outside our apartment. Cameras, reporters." He stood immediately. "Security," he said into the intercom. "Send a car to Mrs. Rowe's address. Make sure she and her daughter are brought here safely. No press." "Yes, sir." As he waited, he looked again at the photo of the pen on the news feed. The caption beneath it read, "The whisper that changed an empire." He exhaled slowly. The truth was powerful, but it was also merciless. It did not care about timing or reputation. It simply arrived, demanding to be seen. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Leah and her mother stepped in, escorted by security. The girl looked small under the oversized coat her mother had wrapped around her. Cameras had not followed them inside, but their noise still echoed from the street below. Mr. Harlow knelt slightly so that his eyes met Leah's. "Are you both all right?" Leah nodded. They kept asking how I found the pen. I did not tell them anything. I just said the truth should not be loud. Her words made him smile, though his heart ached with pride. That was wise, he said. The truth does not need shouting. Mrs. Rowe's voice trembled slightly. Mr. Harlow, we are not used to this. She is just a child. Please, make them stop. I will, he promised. You have my word. He led them to the seating area and poured them each a glass of water. The city roared faintly outside, traffic blending with the hum of media vans. He turned back toward the window and spoke quietly, almost to himself. People love a hero story. They forget heroes are human. Leah tilted her head. Are you in trouble? He looked at her, surprised by the directness of her question. Yes, a little, he admitted. But not because of what you did. Because I let people forget who I was supposed to be. She considered that for a moment, then said, Then maybe the truth is giving you another chance. Her mother looked at her, startled by the maturity in her tone. Mr. Harlow nodded slowly. Maybe it is. The door opened again. His public relations director entered, carrying a tablet. Sir, the media will not leave. They are calling this the Whisper case. Some are questioning how a child had access to the conference room. Mr. Harlow's jaw tightened. We will make a statement, but on our terms. Leah's mother stood. Please, do not bring her into it. He shook his head. I would never. The story will be mine to tell. That evening, under the bright lights of a press conference, Mr. Harlow faced the crowd. Reporters shouted questions. Microphones jutted forward like bayonets. He raised his hand, and the noise settled. Thank you for coming, he began. Yes, there was an attempt to record private corporate information through a hidden device. That device was discovered thanks to a young girl's honesty. She does not work for me. She is not part of this company. She is simply someone who saw what others ignored. Cameras flashed. He continued, his voice steady. This incident has reminded me, and perhaps all of us, that truth has no rank. It does not belong to wealth or status. It can come from anyone willing to speak. One reporter called out, Is the girl here today? No, Mr. Harlow said firmly. And I ask that you respect her privacy. She is a child who acted with courage. That is all you need to know. When he finished, the applause was brief but sincere. The next morning, every news outlet carried his speech. Some praised him, others questioned his sincerity. But across the city, one image stayed in people's minds, the idea of a quiet voice breaking through power. In the following days, donations and letters flooded into the company. Teachers sent notes from classrooms. One read, Our students are learning that truth matters because of Leah. Mr. Harlow kept that one on his desk. Meanwhile, Leah returned to school, where whispers followed her down the hallway. Some classmates looked at her with awe, others with curiosity. Her teacher, Mrs. Delaney, smiled gently and said, You did a very brave thing, Leah. Never let the world make you quiet. At home, her mother kept the curtains closed for a while, but the noise eventually faded. The world moved on, as it always did. Yet for both Leah and Mr. Harlow, something fundamental had changed. For him, the empire he had built no longer felt like stone and glass. It felt human again. For her, the world had grown bigger but not scarier, because she had learned that truth, once spoken, had a way of protecting itself. On his office wall, under the company logo, a new plaque had been installed. It read, Truth does not need to hide. Beneath it, written in smaller letters, was a second line that only a few people knew had been added at his request. Inspired by a whisper, when Mr. Harlow saw it each morning, he remembered the courage that had begun it all, the voice of a little girl in a room full of power, reminding everyone that honesty, even when quiet, was the loudest sound in the world. Several days passed after the press conference, and the storm around Harlow Industries began to settle. The news cycle moved on to other scandals, other voices, other stories. Yet for Mr. Harlow, the silence that followed did not feel empty. It felt alive like soil after rain, ready to grow something new. That evening, when most of the office lights had dimmed and the city began to shimmer outside, Mr. Harlow stepped out of his elevator carrying a paper bag. He wore no suit jacket, only a dark sweater, and the kind of calm that comes after a storm. His destination was not the boardroom or a press interview. He was heading toward the small diner across the street, the one where Leah's mother often stopped after work. The bell above the door jingled softly as he entered. The place was quiet, filled with the smell of coffee and rain. A few regular customers sat along the counter. At the far corner, Leah and her mother were sharing a slice of pie. Leah's feet swung above the floor, her braids bouncing as she talked. When she saw him, her eyes widened with surprise. "Mr. Harlow," she said, smiling. Her mother straightened, wiping her hands on a napkin. "Good evening, sir." He smiled warmly. "Good evening to both of you. May I join you?" Leah nodded enthusiastically, sliding over to make room. "You can have some pie, but there is not much left," she said. "That is all right," he replied, taking a seat. "I actually brought something for you." He opened the paper bag and pulled out a small box wrapped in brown paper. Leah's eyes lit up. "Is it another pen?" she asked. He laughed softly. "No, not this time. Go ahead. Open it." Inside was a simple notebook, the cover embossed with golden letters that read, "For Stories That Matter." The pages were thick and blank, waiting for words. Leah traced the letters with her finger. "It is so pretty," she whispered. "I thought you might like a place to keep your thoughts," Mr. Harlow said. "You have a gift for seeing what others miss. You should write it down." Her mother smiled, pride shining through her tired eyes. "She already keeps little notes in old receipts and paper napkins," she said. "Now she has a real book." Leah grinned. "Thank you, Mr. Harlow. I will fill it with good stories." He nodded. "I believe you will." For a while, they sat together in quiet comfort. The waitress refilled their cups with warm cocoa and coffee. Outside, cars hissed past on wet pavement. Inside, the soft hum of a jukebox filled the pauses between words. Leah looked up suddenly. "Are you still mad at the lady who put the listening pen?" Mr. Harlow sighed. "No, Leah. I was angry, but anger does not build anything. Justice will take its course, but I have learned that sometimes people fall because they forget to listen." "Do you think she is sorry?" "I hope she will be," he said. "Because forgiveness, even when it takes time, can change people." Leah thought about that for a moment. Then maybe she needs someone to forgive her first. Her mother touched her hand gently. "Forgiveness is not always easy, sweetheart." Leah nodded slowly. "But maybe that is why it is worth trying." Mr. Harlow looked at her with quiet admiration. "You remind me of something my grandmother once said," he told her. "She said forgiveness is not about erasing the past. It is about deciding the past will not decide you." Leah smiled softly. "Then you can decide that too." Her words lingered longer than the sound of rain outside. For the first time in years, Mr. Harlow felt something peaceful inside him, something that no meeting, no headline, no fortune had ever given him. When their pie was gone and their cups empty, he stood to leave. "Leah, before I go, I would like to ask you something." She tilted her head. "What is it? Would you like to visit the company again this weekend? I have something new to show you." Her face brightened. "Is it in the lab?" He nodded. "Yes, we are creating a new project, something that will make sure our technology always protects truth, never hides it. I would like you to see it first." Leah clapped her hands. "That sounds amazing." Her mother smiled, though she looked uncertain. "Are you sure it is not too much trouble?" "Not at all," he said sincerely. "It would be my honor." As he walked back into the cool night, the streetlights reflected on the wet pavement like threads of gold. Behind him, through the diner window, he could still see Leah flipping through the first page of her notebook, already writing something with her small, careful letters. He crossed the street and paused in front of his building. The glass tower no longer looked like a monument of power to him. It looked like a mirror, a place where truth had once been whispered and finally heard. Inside the lobby, his reflection appeared beside the company's new plaque. The words glowed under the lights. "Truth does not need to hide." He touched the cold metal gently and smiled. Tomorrow, there would be more challenges. The investigation would continue. The company would rebuild its reputation piece by piece. But tonight, the world felt quieter, kinder, and more honest than it had in a very long time. And somewhere across the street, a little girl with a golden notebook was already writing a new story, one that would begin not with power or wealth, but with the courage it takes to speak when no one else dares to listen. Saturday morning arrived clear and bright, the kind of morning that carried the smell of new beginnings. The city was quieter than usual, softened by sunlight and the distant hum of weekend traffic. Inside Harlow Industries, the atmosphere was different, too lighter, warmer, as if the building itself was ready for something new. Mr. Harlow stood in the lobby waiting, wearing a gray sweater instead of his usual suit. His tie was gone, replaced by a calm expression that surprised even his assistants. On the counter beside him sat a small visitor badge marked Leah Rowe. The elevator doors opened, and Leah stepped out with her mother. She was dressed in her favorite yellow dress and carried the golden notebook he had given her. Her eyes lit up as she looked around. "It is so shiny here," she said, spinning once in place before remembering her manners. "Good morning, Mr. Harlow." He smiled. "Good morning, Leah." "Good morning, Mrs. Rowe." "I am glad you came." Her mother smiled politely. "We appreciate the invitation, sir. Leah has been talking about this all week." Leah nodded eagerly. "You said there was something new to see." "There is," Mr. Harlow said. "Come with me." They followed him into the elevator. As the doors closed, Leah watched the floor numbers light up one by one. "Are we going back to the secret lab?" she asked, whispering like it was still forbidden. He chuckled. "Not so secret anymore." "But yes, we are going there." When the doors opened, the white laboratory glowed under soft overhead lights. Engineers and designers moved quietly, testing new prototypes and reviewing holographic displays. The atmosphere felt alive, but not tense-focused, determined. "This is our new division," Mr. Harlow explained. "We call it Project Echo. Everything we build here must protect honesty and transparency. No hidden devices, no secrets." Leah's eyes widened as she saw a large glass table displaying the design of a small silver wristband. "What does that do?" she asked. "It listens," he said, "but not in the way you think. It records moments of kindness, words, gestures, even sounds that people want to remember. It turns good actions into data, not secrets." Her mouth opened in awe. "You mean like a memory catcher?" He smiled. "Exactly. A memory catcher." Mrs. Rowe watched quietly, her expression softening. "It is a beautiful idea," she said. Mr. Harlow nodded. "We thought the world had enough ways to spy, and not enough ways to remember goodness. Your daughter reminded me of that." Leah blushed and stared at the floor. "I did not do much. You did everything that mattered," he said gently. "You reminded us that truth can still be brave." The chief engineer approached, holding a tablet. "Sir, would you like to show her the prototype in action?" "Yes," Harlow said. "Let us make her our first guest of honor." They walked to a glass display case where one wristband sat glowing faintly. The engineer opened it carefully and handed it to Leah. "Would you like to try?" She looked at her mother, who nodded with a proud smile. "Go ahead, sweetheart." Leah slipped the band around her small wrist. It was cool against her skin, smooth like a pebble washed by water. A soft blue light blinked once, then steadied. Mr. Harlow said, "Now, say something true." Leah thought for a moment, then said clearly, "Kindness is stronger than lies." The bracelet glowed brighter. A faint tone, soft and warm, filled the air around her. On the screen nearby, the words she had spoken appeared in golden letters. Her mother gasped quietly. "It remembered her voice." Mr. Harlow smiled. "Yes, and now it will keep that truth safe forever." Leah looked down at the bracelet, fascinated. "Does it work for everyone?" "It will," he said. "One day anyone can use it to record truth instead of hiding it." She nodded thoughtfully, then looked up at him. "Then no one will need secret pens anymore." He laughed, a sound that felt rare and genuine. "Exactly. That is the goal." The rest of the morning passed easily. Leah asked endless questions, touching models, sketching ideas in her notebook. Her curiosity filled the room with energy the adults had long forgotten. When it was time to leave, she handed the bracelet back carefully. "Thank you for letting me see," she said. "I think this place feels happier now." Mr. Harlow smiled. "That is because of you, Leah. You helped it find its truth again." As they walked back toward the elevator, Mrs. Rowe paused. "Mr. Harlow, I want to thank you for how you have treated my daughter. You have shown her that even small voices matter, Not many people in your position would do that. He looked at her sincerely. You raised her to be brave. The rest was just listening. Leah waved as the elevator doors began to close. I will write about today in my notebook, she said. I hope you do, he replied. And when you finish that notebook, come back. I will make sure there is another waiting for you. As the doors slid shut, he saw her reflection for a brief moment, small, smiling, full of light. When he returned to the lab, the engineers were still working. On the screen, the golden words from Leah's voice were still displayed. Kindness is stronger than lies. He stood for a while, just looking at them. In a world obsessed with power, wealth, and noise, those 6 words felt more valuable than anything his company had ever built. That evening, as the sun began to fall behind the skyline, Mr. Harlow walked to the window and whispered quietly, "Truth grows when it is heard." Outside, the city lights began to flicker on. One by one, each one a small, shining echo of the courage that had started it all. The following week began with a calm that felt almost deceptive. Harlow Industries was running smoother than it had in months. The headlines had softened, the markets were stabilizing, and the employees were beginning to smile again. The company, once shaken by scandal, was quietly rebuilding itself from the inside out. Yet beneath that calm, something unexpected began to stir. It started in the innovation lab, the same place where Leah had tested the prototype wristband. A young engineer named Ethan noticed a faint distortion in one of the security servers. It looked like harmless noise, at first an irregular pulse in the data stream. But when he traced the signal, his expression changed. The pulse was identical to the frequency once used by the listening pen. Ethan hesitated only a moment before sending a report directly to Mr. Harlow. Within an hour, Harlow was in the lab. The old tension returned to his shoulders, but his eyes stayed steady. "Show me," he said. Ethan brought up the screen. "It is a small leak, sir. We cannot confirm its source, but the signal is broadcasting to a remote address through an internal port that no one should be using." Mr. Harlow frowned. "You mean it is coming from inside the company?" "Yes, sir, and the signature is familiar. It matches the same coding pattern used in the original device." The room fell silent. Every engineer stopped what they were doing. It was as if the ghost of the listening pen had come back to haunt them. "Can you locate it?" Harlow asked. "We are working on it," Ethan said. "But the signal hides in short bursts, like it is trying not to be caught." Mr. Harlow's voice remained calm. "Then we will catch it. No one hides from truth twice." For the next several hours, the team worked with quiet intensity. Harlow watched the lines of data scroll across the screens, each one a trail leading toward something hidden. Then, just before noon, a red dot appeared on the digital map of the building. "There," Ethan said. "The signal originates from sublevel 2, the data storage vault." Mr. Harlow straightened. "That floor has been closed since the investigation. Who has access?" Ethan checked the list. "Only 2 people. You, sir, and Miss Lang." The name hung in the air like a shadow. Mr. Harlow pressed the intercom. "Security, meet me on sublevel 2 immediately." Automatically, within minutes, he and 2 guards were descending into the lower level. The air was colder there, humming with the low vibration of power lines and servers. The corridor was narrow, lined with metal walls that reflected the dim lights overhead. At the end of the hall was a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Harlow swiped his card. The lock clicked open, and the sound of machines filled the air. Inside, the rows of servers glowed blue. The faint blinking of status lights felt almost like a heartbeat. Ethan's voice came through the radio. "Sir, the signal is strongest near the center rack." Harlow approached carefully. His footsteps echoed softly. He reached behind one of the servers and found a small black device, barely larger than a coin, attached to the main fiber line. It pulsed with a red light the same exact tone as the pen. "Got it," he said. He removed the device and handed it to one of the guards. "Seal this for analysis. Make sure it goes straight to the tech lab." The guard nodded and left immediately. Harlow remained for a moment, staring at the empty space where the device had been. The faint hum of electricity surrounded him. Then he spoke softly, as if to himself. "Truth does not hide, but deceit always finds a shadow." When he returned to his office, the team had already begun analyzing the small transmitter. It did not take long to confirm the truth. The device had been planted 3 days earlier, On the same day, Leah had visited the lab, but the security footage told a different story. The cameras showed no unauthorized person entering the lab, no sign of Miss Lang, no outside interference. The only unusual event was a power fluctuation that had briefly shut down the monitoring system for exactly 90 seconds. Ethan replayed the footage for Harlow. "It could have been automated," he said. "Someone programmed the system to open the connection, install the device, and reset the cameras." Harlow's jaw tightened. "Someone wanted us to think the problem was gone." "Do you think Miss Lang is behind it?" Ethan asked. Harlow looked at the screen for a long moment. "I think we may be dealing with someone else now. Someone who learned from her." That evening, he sat alone in his office, the city stretching endlessly beyond the window. The lights below flickered like data streams, millions of tiny signals carrying the world's conversations. He thought of Leah, her courage, her faith that truth would always win. For the first time, he wondered if truth was enough. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Leah herself, sent from her mother's phone. It read, "Hi, Mr. Harlow. I wrote something new in my notebook today. It says, even when people hide things again, light knows where to look." He stared at the words for a long time, then smiled faintly. The tension in his shoulders eased just a little. He typed back, "That is beautiful, Leah. Keep writing. The world needs voices like yours." When he put the phone down, the small transmitter sat sealed on his desk under a glass dome. It no longer glowed, but even in stillness, it seemed to hum with the reminder that truth must be guarded, not assumed. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The reflection of lightning flickered across the glass walls, white and fleeting like honesty itself, bright enough to break through darkness, even if only for a moment. And as the storm began to build over the city, Mr. Harlow whispered to the night, "Truth does not end with one whisper. It keeps speaking, even when no one is ready to listen." The storm that had gathered over the city the previous night stretched into morning, draping the skyline in a haze of silver and gray. Inside Harlow Industries, the mood was tense again. The small transmitter found in the lower level had reopened old wounds, and the staff whispered in hallways about who might still be watching. Mr. Harlow sat in his office with the security report spread across his desk. Every page told the same story: no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no trace of intrusion. Whoever had planted that device knew exactly how to disappear. He rubbed his temples slowly. "It feels like a shadow we cannot catch," he murmured. There was a knock at the door. It was Ethan, holding a tablet. "Sir, we might have a lead," he said. Harlow straightened. "Tell me." Ethan placed the tablet on the desk and opened a file. "We decrypted part of the code from the new transmitter. It carries a signature tag, 3 letters repeated throughout the data, LAN. At first, we thought it was random, but it matches the encryption pattern used by Miss Lang when she was still here." Harlow exhaled slowly. "So it really is her. Or someone using her code," Ethan said carefully. "But that would mean they had access to her old login credentials. Those should have been deactivated. Unless she never worked alone," Harlow said quietly. Ethan nodded. "That is what I fear." Harlow stood and walked toward the window. Rain streaked down the glass, turning the city lights into rippling lines. "She wanted to silence me once," he said softly. "Now it seems she wants to remind me she is not finished." Ethan hesitated. "Sir, what do we do?" Harlow turned back, his expression resolute. "We do not hide. That is what deceit expects us to do. I will face her myself." "You mean contact her?" Ethan asked. "Yes," Harlow said. "Set up a secure channel. If she wants to play in the shadows, we will meet her there, but on our terms." Within an hour, the connection was made. The encrypted line opened on Harlow's office computer. The screen flickered once, then filled with static before forming the blurred image of a face. It was unmistakably Miss Lang. Her voice came through cool and steady. "I wondered how long it would take you to find it." Harlow kept his tone calm. "What do you want?" "I wanted to remind you that truth has more than one side," she said. "You built your empire on control, and now you are pretending it was always about honesty." "It is not pretending," he said quietly. "It is rebuilding." She smiled faintly. "You think one child's courage and one speech erased what you are? You are still the man who let greed blind him." Harlow's jaw tightened. Maybe, but I am also the man who listened when she spoke. That is more than I can say for you. For a moment, her expression faltered. Do not make me your villain, Jonathan. You and I both know this company was never pure. Maybe not, he admitted, but it can be now. She laughed softly. And what will you do when the world finds out how many truths you buried to protect yourself? He leaned forward. I will face them. That is the difference between us. You run from the light. I have learned to stand in it. The screen went black. The connection ended. Ethan entered a minute later. What happened? She is still out there, Harlow said, and she is angry, but she also made a mistake. What mistake? He turned the screen toward Ethan. She used her own voice. We can trace the frequency of her audio signature. Ethan's eyes widened. We can find her? Yes, Harlow said. Do it quietly. I want to know where she is before she knows we are looking. As Ethan hurried out, Harlow sat back in his chair. The city outside had darkened again, the rain growing heavier. He thought of Leah's words in her last message, light knows where to look. That evening, he left the office early and drove through the city. He needed to clear his mind. When he passed the small park near Leah's neighborhood, he saw her sitting under the gazebo, writing in her golden notebook. He parked the car and walked over. She looked up when she saw him. Mr. Harlow, you found me. I needed a walk, he said. What are you writing? A story, she said. It is about a man who finds out someone he trusted was still lying. But instead of getting angry, he tries to help her remember who she used to be. He smiled faintly. That sounds familiar. Zuh. She tilted her head. Are you going to help your friend too? He hesitated. She is not quite a friend anymore, Leah. But she used to be, Leah said gently. Maybe she forgot what truth sounds like. Maybe you can remind her. He looked down at the small notebook in her hands. Rain began to fall softly again, tapping against the gazebo roof. Her words echoed in his mind, simple, but sharp as light. Maybe I can, he said quietly. Leah grinned. Then you should, because when people stop listening, they stop changing. He looked at her, seeing not just a child but a mirror of conscience he had needed for so long. You are right, Leah. Again. She smiled. That is what I do. As he walked back to his car, he felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not anger, resolve. He would face whatever truth remained in the shadows. But this time, he would do it with open eyes and an open heart. Behind him, the park lights flickered on, scattering reflections across the wet ground. And in the distance, thunder rolled once more, as if the storm itself was listening. The next morning, sunlight returned to the city for the first time in days. The rain had washed the streets clean, leaving the air cool and bright. From his office window, Mr. Harlow could see people walking to work, holding coffee cups and newspapers, their faces calm again. It should have been an ordinary day, but he knew it would not be. Ethan entered quietly, holding a folder. His eyes were serious. Sir, we found her. Harlow turned from the window. Where? An apartment near the West River district, Ethan said. She has been using a false name, but the trace from her voice transmission confirmed the location. She is not hiding anymore. Harlow nodded slowly. Then it is time. Should I alert the authorities? Ethan asked. Harlow hesitated. Not yet. I will go first. There are things I need to say to her that no report can explain. Ethan frowned. Sir, that could be risky. It will be fine, Harlow said quietly. She will listen. She used to, once. He left the building without his usual entourage, driving himself through the late morning traffic. The city moved around him with the same rhythm it always had, yet everything felt slower, heavier, more deliberate. When he reached the West River district, he parked near a row of old brick apartments. The river shimmered beyond them, wide and calm under the Sunday. He climbed the narrow staircase to the third floor and stopped in front of a faded green door. For a moment, he simply stood there, listening to the quiet hum of life inside a kettle boiling, a radio murmuring softly. Then he knocked. The door opened. Miss Lang stood there, wearing a plain gray sweater and no makeup. Her face looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. You found me, she said. I did, Harlow replied. May I come in? She stepped aside without a word. The small apartment was neat but empty. furnished only with what she needed. A single framed photo sat on the shelf, two young people in front of the original Harlow Industries building, smiling at a future they had not yet ruined. "You still have that picture," he said quietly. She glanced at it. "It reminds me of when we believed in something." "I still do," he said. She poured tea into 2 cups and handed one to him. "Then you have learned nothing," she said. He took the cup but did not drink. "You think truth is weakness, but it is not. It is the only strength that lasts." She laughed softly. "You speak like that child now." He met her gaze. "She told me something I had forgotten, that honesty is not loud, it is steady. You used to believe that too." Miss Lang looked away. "Belief does not pay bills or win contracts. I did what I had to do." "You betrayed everyone who trusted you," he said. "And you betrayed me long before that," she snapped. "You built your empire, and I built your silence. We both know which was worth more." Her words stung, but Harlow did not react. "You are right," he said softly. "I did ignore the truth for years. I cared more about numbers than people, but not anymore." She stared at him, confused by his calm. "So what now? You came here to forgive me?" "I came here to stop you," he said. "And yes, to forgive you if you will let me." Her hand tightened around the teacup. "You think forgiveness will make me harmless?" "No," he said. "It will make you human again." The silence that followed was heavy. Outside, a gull cried somewhere over the river. Finally, she spoke. "You will not call the police?" "I already could have," he said, "but I wanted you to hear this first. The truth you tried to destroy is still alive. Leah, the girl you called insignificant, gave it a voice. She made people believe again. You can hate me, but you cannot take that away." Miss Lang's eyes flickered with something uncertain: pain, regret, maybe both. "That child," she said softly. "She should have stayed quiet." "She did what neither of us could," Harlow said. "She saw the wrong and spoke anyway. That is what courage looks like." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she set her cup down with a soft clink. "You always had a way of sounding noble," she said, but her voice was trembling. "Maybe you really have changed." He stood. "I had help." She gave a small, humorless smile. "That girl again." He nodded. "Yes, that girl again." As he turned to leave, she said quietly, "What happens to me now?" "You have a choice," he said. "Come forward. Tell the truth. Help undo the damage you started. It will not fix everything, but it will start something honest." She looked down at her hands. "And if I refuse?" He paused at the door. "Then the law will come for you. But I hope it will not have to." When he left the apartment, the sunlight felt different, brighter, clearer, as if it had been waiting for this moment. He walked to his car slowly, breathing in the clean air by the river. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Leah's mother. "Leah is writing another story. She says it is about a woman who remembers how to listen again." Mr. Harlow smiled faintly as he read it. Maybe, he thought, truth had already begun its quiet work. Maybe the smallest voices were still healing the loudest wounds. He looked back once toward the building. Behind one of the windows, a curtain moved slightly. He did not know whether Miss Lang was watching him leave, but he hoped she was, because for the first time in years, he was not walking away from the truth, he was walking with it. That same evening, the city glowed under a thin layer of fog, softening the sharp edges of buildings and neon lights. The river shimmered faintly beneath the bridge, and somewhere far away, thunder murmured over the horizon. Mr. Harlow sat alone in his office, staring at the skyline. The meeting with Miss Lang still echoed in his mind, her bitterness, her half-hidden regret, her final silence. He knew the decision was hers now. Either she would come forward and tell the truth herself, or the law would reach her first. But deep down, he hoped she would choose the harder, more human path, the one that led toward redemption. The elevator doors opened quietly behind him. Ethan stepped in, carrying a folder. "Sir," he said, "the new team from the cyber division finished analyzing the transmitter we found last week." Harlow turned, weary but alert. "And it was linked to an offshore network," Ethan said. "But before we shut it down, it sent one last transmission. We traced it to a single receiver registered under Miss Lang's name." Harlow nodded slowly. "Then she knew we would find her. Maybe she wanted it that way." Ethan hesitated. "There is something else. She sent an encrypted message right after your visit this morning." Harlow looked up sharply. To whom? Ethan placed the folder on the desk. To you. It came through our old internal system. We decoded it just before I came here. He handed Harlow a printed page. The message was short, written in Miss Lang's precise, steady hand. You were right. I lost sight of what mattered. I will tell the truth my way. Do not look for me again. There was no signature, only the initials L.A. Harlow read it twice. Then he folded the paper carefully and set it down. She is choosing her ending, he said softly. Ethan frowned. Should we inform the authorities? Yes, Harlow said, but not to hunt her, to prepare for her statement. If she keeps her word, she will reach out soon. Ethan nodded, then left the room. The silence that followed was deep, but not heavy. Harlow leaned back in his chair, looking at the reflection of the city lights on the glass wall. He remembered Leah's words from the park. Maybe she forgot what truth sounds like. Maybe you can remind her. Now, it seemed Leah had been right again. Later that night, as he prepared to leave, his phone buzzed with another message, this one from Leah's mother. Leah wants to visit you tomorrow after school. She says she wrote a story you need to hear in person. He smiled faintly and replied, Tell her I will be here. The next afternoon, the sun returned, golden and gentle. When Leah arrived at the building, she carried her golden notebook, which was now half full of neat handwriting. Her mother waited in the lobby, while Leah went upstairs with one of the assistants. When the elevator opened, she stepped into Harlow's office, her shoes tapping lightly on the polished floor. Mr. Harlow, she said, waving her notebook. I finished my new story. He smiled warmly. Then I cannot wait to hear it. She climbed onto the chair across from him and opened her notebook. It is called The Woman and the Whisper. Interesting title, he said. Go on. Leah began reading, her small voice steady but full of feeling. Once, there was a woman who could not hear the truth anymore. She only listened to her own noise. One day, a little whisper came and told her something small but real. The woman tried to run from it, but the whisper followed her, not to scare her, but to remind her that truth never leaves it waits. Harlow listened in silence, his hands folded. Leah continued. The woman was angry at first, but when she stopped running, she realized the whisper was not her enemy, it was her friend. And even though she had done bad things, the whisper forgave her, because it knew she could still choose to be good again. She looked up at him. That is the end. Harlow's eyes softened. It is a beautiful story, Leah. She smiled proudly. Do you think the woman will listen next time? He nodded slowly. I think she already has. Leah closed her notebook carefully. Then maybe the whisper can rest now. He leaned forward slightly. Leah, can I tell you something? Of course, she said. There are not many people in this world who can change others with their words, but you do. You changed me, and maybe you changed someone else too. Leah tilted her head. The lady from before? Yes, he said softly. I think she finally remembered what truth sounds like. Leah smiled, then looked out the window. That makes me happy. After she left, Harlow stood by the window, watching her and her mother walk down the steps toward the busy street. He noticed how the sunlight followed her, how even her small shadow seemed to glow. That evening, just as the sun began to set, Harlow received a call from the federal office. The voice on the line said, Sir, Miss Lang just contacted us. She has turned herself in and provided evidence confirming your statement. She said she wanted to make things right. Harlow closed his eyes for a brief moment. Thank you, he said quietly. When he hung up, the room felt lighter. The long shadow that had followed the company for months was finally lifting. He turned off the lights and stood for a while, watching the city below. The streets shimmered under the golden dusk, alive and forgiving. Somewhere out there, Miss Lang was facing her truth, and somewhere else, a little girl was probably writing her next story. For the first time in a long time, Harlow did not feel like the man who had lost control of his world. He felt like someone who had found it again not through power, but through honesty, through the voice of a child who dared to whisper when no one else would. And as night settled over the city, he said softly into the quiet, Thank you, Leah. The truth is awake again. The following morning began quietly. A soft layer of fog hung over the river, and sunlight filtered through in streaks of pale gold. Inside Harlow Industries, the building was unusually calm. Employees moved through the halls with quiet focus, their footsteps echoing faintly against the marble floors. For the first time in many months, there was no panic, no whispers of scandal, only a sense that something heavy had finally lifted. In his office, Mr. Harlow stood by the window, a cup of coffee warming his hands. On his desk lay the morning newspaper. The headline read, "Former executive confesses in corporate espionage case, cites desire to make things right." There was no bitterness in his face, no triumph, only a deep, steady calm. He read the article once more, then folded it neatly and set it aside. The law would handle the rest, and Miss Lang's statement would close the last chapter of the chaos that had nearly destroyed his company. But for Mr. Harlow, the end of that storm was not just about justice, it was about restoration. The intercom buzzed softly. "Sir," said the receptionist, "you have a visitor. It is Leah Rowe." He smiled immediately. "Send her in." Moments later, the elevator doors opened, and Leah stepped into the office. She was wearing a simple blue dress and holding her golden notebook close to her chest. Her eyes shone with excitement, the way sunlight reflects on clean glass. "Good morning, Mr. Harlow," she said cheerfully. "I came to check if you were still listening." He laughed gently. "Always, Leah. What brings you here today?" She walked up to his desk and opened her notebook. "I wrote another story. It is called The Day the City Stopped Whispering." He leaned forward, intrigued. "That sounds like something important. Tell me about it." Leah's voice softened as she began to read. "It is about a city that forgot how to listen. Everyone talked at the same time, so the truth got lost between all the noise. But then, one day, a small whisper reminded everyone what silence could mean. Silence that listens, not silence that hides." Harlow listened quietly, his heart full. When she finished, he said, "That is beautiful, Leah. It sounds like the city I used to know." She smiled. "Then maybe it means the city is getting better." He nodded. "Yes, I think it is." Leah climbed onto the chair across from him, her legs swinging just above the floor. "My mom said the lady told the police what she did," she said carefully. "Is she going to be okay?" Mr. Harlow looked out the window, his reflection framed by the light. "She will face what she must face," he said softly. "But sometimes, telling the truth is the beginning of being okay." Leah tilted her head thoughtfully. "So she listened after all?" "Yes," he said with a small smile. "She listened." Leah nodded firmly, as if that settled it. Then she looked at him again. "Do you think people can change?" He considered the question for a moment. "Yes, Leah. People can change when they remember what matters more than pride, kindness, honesty, courage. Those things do not disappear. They just get quiet sometimes." Leah wrote that down in her notebook quickly. "That is a good line," she said. "I am going to use it in my next story." He chuckled. "Then I am honored." Oh, they spent the next few minutes looking out at the city together. The glass towers glimmered under the noon sun, and traffic below moved in calm rhythm. After a while, Leah said, "Do you still keep that pen, the one from before?" He walked to his cabinet and opened the small glass case inside. The silver pen lay there, sealed and silent, its tiny red light forever dark. He held it up for her to see. "Yes," he said, "but not because I want to remember the lie. I keep it to remember the truth that stopped it." Leah nodded slowly. "Like a reminder?" "Exactly," he said. "A reminder that even small voices can save something big." She smiled proudly. "Then maybe you should write with it again, but this time, for good things." He looked at the pen, then at her. "That is a wonderful idea." He placed the pen on his desk, took a blank sheet of paper, and wrote in careful, deliberate strokes. "Truth does not need to hide." Leah watched him write, her eyes wide. "That looks like a promise," she said. "It is," he replied, "and one I intend to keep." Before leaving, Leah tore a small page from her notebook and handed it to him. On it, she had written in neat letters, "Even whispers can build a world if someone listens long enough." He took the note gently. "May I keep this?" She grinned. "Yes, but only if you promise to listen forever." He placed the note beside the silver pen and nodded. "I promise." 1. As Leah and her mother left the building, Harlow stood by the window once more, watching the sunlight stretch across the city. The skyline looked different now, not just tall and shining, but alive, breathing, human. That afternoon, He gathered his staff in the main conference hall. When everyone was seated, he spoke with calm authority. "This company has been through darkness," he said, "but the light that brought us out of it came from a child's courage. From now on, every decision we make will honor that courage. We will lead with honesty, even when it is hard." The employees applauded quietly, but sincerely. In that moment, they were not just workers, they were witnesses to change. Later, when his office was empty again, Harlow read Leah's note one more time. The words glowed softly in the light from his desk lamp. And as evening fell over the city, he whispered to himself, "Even whispers can build a world." It was no longer just a reminder. It was the foundation of everything that would follow. The following week carried a different rhythm inside Harlow Industries. The tension that had once filled every corridor was replaced with quiet optimism. Conversations were lighter, and people greeted one another with genuine warmth instead of obligation. The phrase "truth does not need to hide" had begun to take root not only as a slogan but as a culture. Mr. Harlow arrived early that Monday morning, as he always did. The sunlight poured through the tall glass windows, scattering patterns of gold across the floor. On his desk sat Leah's note, framed now in silver. "Even whispers can build a world if someone listens long enough." It had become the first thing he looked at every morning, and the last thing before he left each night. He opened his laptop and scanned through the daily reports. The company's innovation division, Project Echo, was thriving. The wristband Leah had tested, the memory catcher, was now in its second development phase. The prototype worked perfectly, capturing short voice notes that reminded people of their best moments: kindness, gratitude, honesty. The idea was spreading fast, and other departments were adapting it into real-world applications. But more than numbers, what made Mr. Harlow proud was the change in spirit. His employees no longer competed with quiet resentment. They collaborated with purpose. He could feel it in every meeting. The company had rediscovered its conscience. A soft knock came at the door. It was Ethan, carrying a small box. "Sir," he said, smiling, "I thought you might want to see this." Mr. Harlow gestured for him to come in. "What is it?" Ethan placed the box on the desk and opened it. Inside was a small prototype of the memory catcher, this time encased in clear glass. The design shimmered faintly, elegant and pure. "This is the final version," Ethan said proudly. "We thought you should have the first one." Harlow lifted it gently. "It is beautiful," he said. Ethan nodded. "We have decided to call it the Whisper Band." It felt right. Mr. Harlow smiled at the name. Leah would like that. As if summoned by the mention of her name, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Leah's mother. "Leah has something she wants to bring to you after school today. She says it is important." He texted back immediately. "Tell her I will be waiting." That afternoon, as the sun began to dip low, Leah arrived at the building. Her golden notebook was tucked under her arm, and her smile was brighter than ever. "Mr. Harlow," she called out as soon as she saw him. He greeted her warmly. "Leah, my favorite author. What do you have for me today?" She climbed into the big chair across from his desk. "I wrote something," she said, "but this time, it is not a story. It is a promise." He leaned forward with interest. "A promise? That sounds serious." Leah nodded and flipped open her notebook. "It says, when I grow up, I'm going to make things that tell the truth. Machines, stories, maybe even songs. Because the world forgets fast, but truth should never be forgotten." He listened in silence, his chest tightening with quiet pride. "That is a powerful promise, Leah." She smiled. "You keep promises too. You said you would not stop listening." And I have not," he said sincerely. Her eyes fell on the glass case that held the old silver pen. "You still keep that pen," she said softly. "I do," he replied. "It reminds me how something small can carry both danger and hope." "It depends on who holds it." Leah nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe that pen is like people. They can write lies, but they can also write truth." He smiled. "That is very wise." She pointed to the small wristband prototype on his desk. "Is that the thing you showed me last time?" "Yes," he said, "and we have given it a new name, the Whisper Band. Would you like to see what it does now?" Her eyes lit up. "Yes, please." He activated it and handed it to her. "Now, Speak something true, whatever comes to your heart. Leah thought for a moment, then said clearly, people who listen can change the world. The band glowed softly, and her words appeared in golden letters on the screen beside them. She gasped. It remembered it. Oh, yes, he said gently. It will remember every true word you say. It is built to protect truth, not spy on it. She grinned. Then that means it is safe. It is, he said. Just like you made us safe when you spoke up. Leah looked proud but also a little shy. I just said what I saw. He smiled, and that was enough. They sat quietly for a moment, the hum of the city faint beyond the glass. Then Leah asked softly, do you think people will wear these? Will they really want to remember the good things? I think they will, he said. Because deep down, everyone wants to live in a world where truth is not something to fear. Leah smiled. Then maybe your company will make the world kinder. I hope so, he said. And when that happens, I will tell everyone it started with a little girl who noticed a blinking red light. She giggled. That was a scary day. It was, he admitted. But it was also the day everything began to change. Before leaving, Leah took a blank page from her notebook and wrote something quickly. She handed it to him with both hands. This is for you, she said. He read it aloud. If truth is a seed, kindness is the water that helps it grow. He looked at her, deeply moved. Leah, you have a gift. Never stop writing. I will not, she said proudly. Because you said words matter. When she left that evening, the sun had dipped low, and the golden light filled the office with warmth. Mr. Harlow placed her new note beside the silver pen and the framed quote, completing what had become a small altar to truth. He stood there for a long moment, watching the fading light across the skyline. For the first time in years, he felt not just successful, but fulfilled. Outside, the city moved forward faster, louder, brighter, but inside that glass office, one quiet promise remained unbroken: to listen, to build, and to protect every whisper that carried truth. The next few weeks unfolded like a gentle sunrise after a long storm. The chaos of the past had faded, replaced by a new kind of order, one built on trust, not fear. Harlow Industries had become a symbol of renewal in the business world, praised not for its profits, but for its integrity. Every magazine headline carried the same quiet admiration: the company that listened. Mr. Harlow no longer measured success by numbers on a screen. Instead, he measured it by moments, small acts of kindness among his employees, honest conversations, and the laughter that now filled the building's once sterile hallways. The transformation had begun with one whisper, and it was still growing louder every day. On a bright Friday morning, he walked through the innovation lab where Project Echo, the Whisper Band, was nearing its official release. Engineers were gathered around workstations, testing different versions of the band, ensuring that every detail worked perfectly. The atmosphere was alive with purpose. Good morning, sir, Ethan said as Mr. Harlow entered. We just finalized the design for the public version. Would you like to see it? Of course, Harlow said with a smile. Ethan handed him a sleek black box. Inside was a smaller, refined version of the Whisper Band. The clear glass had been replaced with a brushed silver surface that caught the light like morning dew. On the inside of the wristband, engraved in tiny letters, were 6 words: kindness is stronger than lies. Mr. Harlow ran his thumb over the engraving, recognizing the words immediately. Those are Leah's, he said softly. Yes, Ethan replied. We decided to honor her. Every Whisper Band will carry her message. For a long moment, Harlow said nothing. Then he looked up, his eyes shining with quiet pride. Good work, Ethan. This is not just a product, it is a promise. Ethan nodded. We have scheduled the launch event for next Friday. Would you like to invite her? Of course, Harlow said. She deserves to see what she inspired. That afternoon, he called Leah's mother. I would like you and Leah to come to the company next Friday, he said warmly. We are unveiling something important, and it would mean a lot to have you both there. Leah's mother sounded touched. We will be there, Mr. Harlow. She will be thrilled. When Leah heard the news, she was so excited she started writing a new story immediately. She titled it The Whisper That Became a Song. Her teacher helped her polish the words, saying it might be good enough to read at the event if Mr. Harlow agreed. The days passed quickly. The city seemed to hum with anticipation as the launch approached. By the time Friday arrived, the lobby of Harlow Industries was transformed into a space of light and sound. Reporters filled the entrance, photographers adjusted their cameras, and employees stood proudly near the display stands, showcasing the new Whisper band. Leah arrived holding her mother's hand, her golden notebook tucked under her arm. She wore a simple white dress with a small sunflower pinned to it. When she saw Mr. Harlow waiting by the stage, she ran to him with her usual energy. "You look very professional today," he said with a smile. "I dressed like a storyteller," Leah replied proudly. "Because stories tell truth, too," he laughed softly. "Then you are dressed perfectly." As the event began, lights dimmed slightly, and soft music filled the air. Mr. Harlow stepped onto the stage and addressed the audience. "Today is not just a product launch," he began. "It is a celebration of truth, of courage, and of listening. This company once lost its way, but a single voice, small but fearless, brought us back." He turned toward Leah, who sat in the front row. "That voice belongs to a young girl named Leah Rowe. She reminded us that even whispers can change the world." Applause filled the room, and Leah's cheeks flushed pink. Her mother's eyes glistened with pride. Mr. Harlow continued, "We have built this technology not to spy, but to remember. Not to control, but to connect. The Whisper Band exists to preserve truth, kindness, and memory, the things that make us human." He gestured toward the screen behind him, where a video began to play. It showed people from different backgrounds, teachers, nurses, construction workers, and children, each saying something true while wearing the Whisper Band. Their words appeared in golden letters as they spoke. "I forgive. I believe in second chances. Truth is love." When the video ended, the applause was soft but heartfelt. Then Mr. Harlow said, "And now, I would like to invite the person who inspired this journey to share something with us. Leah, will you come up here?" The audience clapped again as Leah climbed the steps to the stage, her notebook clutched tightly in her small hands. She stood beside Mr. Harlow, looking out at the crowd. Her voice was steady when she began to read. "This is called the whisper that became a song. Once, a whisper was afraid it was too small to be heard, but when someone finally listened, the whisper turned into a melody that filled the world. It reminded people to be kind, to tell the truth, and to listen to one another again. And soon, the world was not so loud with lies, it was peaceful with honesty." When she finished, the room was silent for a heartbeat, then erupted into applause. Mr. Harlow smiled, his heart full. He leaned down and whispered so only she could hear, "You did it again, Leah. You reminded them." She smiled up at him. "I just told the truth." Later that evening, as the crowd dispersed and the lights dimmed, Mr. Harlow stood alone for a moment on the stage, holding one of the new Whisper bands. The engraving caught the light. "Kindness is stronger than lies." He looked out across the city through the glass walls. For the first time, it did not look cold or distant. It looked alive. It looked honest. And in that quiet, he realized that the world did not need more noise. It just needed more people willing to listen. The night after the launch felt like a dream. The city lights shimmered over the river, and soft rain began to fall, washing the streets clean. Inside his quiet office, Mr. Harlow sat alone at his desk, still wearing the same suit from the event. The applause, the flashes of cameras, Leah's voice reading her story, it all replayed in his mind like a song he did not want to end. In front of him sat the final version of the Whisper Band, the words "Kindness is stronger than lies" gleaming faintly under the desk lamp. For the first time in many years, Harlow felt content not because of success, but because of meaning. The world had heard a message that mattered, and it had come from the smallest voice among them. He looked toward the framed quote on his wall, Leah's words. "Even whispers can build a world if someone listens long enough." He smiled softly, whispering to himself, she was right. The clock struck 10 when his phone buzzed. It was a message from Leah's mother. "Thank you for today." Leah fell asleep still smiling. She said it was the best day of her life. Harlow's heart warmed. "Tell her it was one of mine too," he replied. Then he turned off the light, locked the door, and stepped out into the rain. The weekend passed quietly, filled with reflection and gratitude. News outlets across the country covered the launch. They called it a revolution of conscience. and for once, the headlines felt honest. The Whisper Band was already selling out in pre-orders, but Harlow no longer cared about profits. What mattered was that people were beginning to listen to themselves and to each other. By Monday morning, the company felt brighter than ever. Employees greeted one another with energy. The lobby displayed photographs from the launch event, including one of Leah reading her story beside Mr. Harlow. Beneath it was a plaque that read, "Inspired by truth, led by courage." In the middle of this new hope, Ethan knocked on Harlow's office door. "Sir, you need to see this," he said, holding a folder. Harlow frowned slightly. "Something wrong?" "Not exactly wrong," Ethan said carefully, "but surprising." He opened the folder and showed Harlow a document. It was an email, sent through the company's public feedback system. The sender's name caught Harlow's eye immediately, Amelia Lang. The message read, "I watched the launch. You did well. The world needs what you are building. Thank the girl for me. I finally understand what it means to listen." Harlow sat back, staring at the words. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he exhaled slowly. "She is free," he said quietly. Ethan nodded. The court reduced her sentence after her confession. She is on community service now, teaching business ethics at a local college. A small smile crossed Harlow's face. Then maybe the truth has done its work. That afternoon, Leah came by again with her mother, carrying a small paper bag. "I brought something for you," she said proudly as she entered his office. He grinned. "For me? You are spoiling me, Leah." She handed him the bag. Inside was a handmade clay figure, a small silver pen, just like the one that had started everything. Its base was inscribed with 3 words. "Never stop listening." Harlow's chest tightened with emotion. "You made this yourself?" She nodded. "At school, my teacher said we should make something that reminds us to be brave. I made this for you because you listened when no one else did." He placed the clay pen carefully beside the real one locked in its glass case. "I think this one means more," he said softly. Leah smiled. "Good, then promise you will keep it forever." "I promise," he said. She looked around the office, her eyes landing on the framed photo from the event. "Everyone looked so happy that day," she said. "They were," he replied, "because of you." Leah frowned a little. "But it is not just me. Everyone can tell the truth if they are brave enough." Harlow nodded. "Yes, but sometimes it takes one person to remind everyone else." She grinned. "Then maybe I will remind them again when I grow up." He smiled. "I do not doubt that for a second." Before leaving, Leah asked if she could visit the innovation lab again. Harlow agreed immediately. Together they rode the elevator down, and the doors opened to reveal the bright, humming space. Engineers greeted her like a hero. Ethan showed her the wall where the first Whisper Band prototype now hung behind glass, alongside a short inscription that read, "Born from a whisper of truth." Leah touched the glass gently. "It feels alive," she said. "It is," Harlow replied, "because truth always lives." As they walked back toward the elevator, Leah stopped and looked at him. "Mr. Harlow, do you think people will ever stop lying completely?" He thought about it carefully before answering. "Maybe not, Leah, but if people remember to listen, the lies will never win." She nodded, satisfied with that answer. "Then we just have to keep listening." When she and her mother left, the building felt fuller somehow, like her presence had left light in the air. Harlow returned to his office and placed the little clay pen under the desk lamp. It glowed softly in the golden light, its handmade lines imperfect but full of heart. He thought of all the people who had come into his life because of one brave whisper, a child, a fallen colleague, a team reborn. It amazed him how something so small had rebuilt an empire and healed a conscience. As the sun dipped beyond the skyline, Mr. Harlow whispered the same words he had once heard from Leah, letting them echo softly through the empty room. "Kindness is stronger than lies." Isaac Lee. The lights from the city below shimmered like thousands of tiny truths rising into the night, and for the first time, he believed the world was finally beginning to listen. The morning after Leah's visit dawned with a soft glow that made the entire city look washed in gold. From his office window, Mr. Harlow could see the light stretch across the skyline, touching the steel and glass towers like a quiet blessing. The world outside was still moving fast, cars rushing, Phones ringing, deals being made, but for him, everything had slowed into something clearer, something true. On his desk sat two things: the clay pen Leah had made, and the final version of the whisper band. The contrast between them, one rough and handmade, the other sleek and precise, seemed to capture the very lesson he had learned. Technology could build progress, but it was the human heart that gave progress its meaning. As he reviewed the morning reports, Ethan entered with a bright expression. "Sir, the feedback from the Whisper Band launch is extraordinary. People are sharing recordings of their truths online. It has become a movement." Harlow smiled. "A movement?" "Yes," Ethan said. "They are calling it the listening generation. Schools are using it for students to share gratitude notes. Hospitals are recording messages of hope for patients. Even local radio stations are broadcasting people's words from the bands every morning." Harlow leaned back in his chair, speechless for a moment. "The world is learning to listen again," he said quietly. Ethan nodded. "And it started here." Just then, the intercom buzzed. The receptionist's voice came through, cheerful but slightly surprised. "Sir, you have an unexpected visitor. It is Miss Lang." Harlow and Ethan exchanged glances. "Send her in," Harlow said after a pause. Moments later, Miss Lang stepped into the office. Her hair was shorter now, streaked with gray, and she wore a simple blazer instead of her usual polished attire. She looked older, humbler, but there was something peaceful about her face. "Harlow," she said softly, "you look well." "So do you," he replied. "Please sit." She sat across from him, glancing briefly at the clay pen and the whisper band on his desk. "You kept both," she said quietly. "I keep reminders," he said. "They help me remember why I do what I do." She smiled faintly. "I saw the news. The launch was remarkable. You built something beautiful." "We built it," he said. "You were part of what led us here, even if not in the way either of us expected." She nodded. "I suppose that is true." They sat in silence for a moment before she said, "I came to thank you for not destroying me when you could have, for giving me a chance to make things right." "You gave yourself that chance," he said gently. "I only reminded you it was still there." Her eyes softened. "I finished my community service last week. The students I taught, they changed me. They asked questions I could not hide from. They wanted to know how greed becomes blindness, how power makes you forget to care. Answering them made me remember who I used to be." "That sounds like redemption," Harlow said quietly. She smiled sadly. "Maybe. Or maybe it is just the beginning of it." Harlow reached into his desk and pulled out a small box. "Then let me give you something." She opened it and found a whisper band inside, engraved with the words, "Truth deserves another chance." "I thought you might like to start again," he said. She looked at the band for a long moment, her fingers trembling slightly. "You never stop surprising me." He smiled. "Neither did you. You just forgot how." She slipped the band onto her wrist. "It feels lighter than guilt," she said softly. He nodded. "That is because it is made for truth." Before she left, she turned back at the door. "Harlow, there is one more thing. I saw the girl at the launch, the one who exposed me. Leah, right?" "Yes," he said. "She is the bravest person I have ever met." Miss Lang hesitated, her voice quiet. "Tell her, thank you, for reminding me that truth is not my enemy." "I will," he said. After she left, the room felt different, not heavier, but fuller. Harlow stood at the window, looking out at the city again. He thought about how everything had come full circle, the betrayal, the forgiveness, the second chances. Even broken people, he realized, could become bearers of light again. That afternoon, Leah arrived after school with her golden notebook, as she often did. She was bubbling with excitement. "Mr. Harlow, did you hear? They talked about the whisper band at my school assembly today. My teacher said we should all try to speak one true thing every day." He smiled. "Then your teacher is a wise person." She beamed. "I told them I already do that. And they said I should help others learn." He laughed softly. "You already are, Leah." She looked around the office and noticed the second whisper band on his desk. "That looks new. Did you make another one?" He nodded. "It is a gift, for someone who needed to remember what truth feels like." She smiled knowingly. "For the lady?" "Yes," he said. "She came back today." Leah's expression softened. "Is she okay now?" I think she will be, Harlow said. Sometimes people need to get lost before they can find the right way home. Leah nodded thoughtfully and wrote that line down in her notebook. That sounds like the beginning of a new story. Then it is yours to write, he said warmly. As the sun began to set, casting long orange rays through the office windows, Leah packed up her notebook and waved. See you soon, Mr. Harlow. Do not stop listening. I will not, he promised. When she was gone, he turned back to the window. The city below glowed with countless lights, each one, he thought, a whisper waiting to be heard. And as the night deepened, he whispered into the quiet room, truth found its way home. The hum of the city answered softly, as if agreeing that maybe, at last, it had. The following days passed quietly, filled with the kind of calm that only follows a long season of storms. The world outside seemed brighter, not because the city had changed, but because people were finally beginning to listen again. In schools, in offices, even in homes, the whisper band had become more than a device, it was a bridge between truth and understanding. Mr. Harlow noticed it everywhere. Taxi drivers wore it on their wrists while humming softly to themselves. Teachers used it in classrooms to help children express gratitude. Hospitals played recordings from it in recovery rooms to bring comfort to patients. What had once been a single idea born from a child's courage had grown into something alive, something human. One morning, while reading through emails, he received a message that made him stop. The subject line read, Leah's school project. It was from her teacher, Mrs. Morrison. The message said, Leah has been working on a community project inspired by your company's message. She would like to invite you to her school this Friday for the presentation. Harlow smiled and replied immediately, I will be there. Thank you for letting me know. When Friday came, he drove across the city to the small public school on the west side. It was modest, with a playground full of chalk drawings and laughter. The sight of it made him think of simpler times when truth was something you felt, not something you measured. Inside the gymnasium, rows of students sat cross-legged on the floor, their faces bright with excitement. Posters hung along the walls, each one decorated with colorful letters that read, Voices of Truth Fair. In the center of the room stood a display table covered with handmade whisper bands, each crafted from cardboard, ribbon, or clay. Leah spotted him from across the room and waved enthusiastically. Mr. Harlow, you came. Of course I did, he said, smiling as he walked toward her. I would not miss this for the world. She beamed. I told my class about how we built a real whisper band and how it helps people tell the truth. So, we decided to make our own versions. But ours do not record words, they share them out loud. He looked around at the children's creations. Some had written short phrases on their bands. Be kind, tell the truth, listen first. Others had added drawings of hearts, stars, and little ears to symbolize listening. It was simple, but deeply moving. Mrs. Morrison stepped up to the microphone. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Our students wanted to celebrate what they have learned about truth and courage. Leah will begin by sharing her story. Leah walked to the front of the room, holding her golden notebook. She opened it and began to read in her clear, confident voice. Once, I met a man who forgot how to listen. He was powerful and smart, but his heart had too much noise. So I whispered the truth to him, and the truth made him quiet long enough to hear again. The children listened closely. The adults in the back, including Harlow, stood still. Leah continued. Sometimes people think truth is loud, like shouting. But truth is soft. It just waits until someone is ready to listen. That is what my story means. When she finished, the gym filled with applause. Harlow felt his chest tighten with emotion. She had not just told a story, she had captured everything he had spent his life trying to learn. After the event, he spoke with Mrs. Morrison while Leah played nearby. You have quite the storyteller here, he said warmly. Mrs. Morrison smiled. She has something rare, she sees goodness in people before she judges them. That is what makes her words powerful. He nodded. That is what makes her human. As he was leaving, Leah ran up and handed him a small folded paper. I made this for you, she said. He unfolded it and found a drawing of a large building surrounded by tiny glowing dots. Above it, she had written, Truth spreads like light. Once it starts, it never stops. He looked down at her. That is beautiful, Leah. She grinned. It is what I believe now. He placed the drawing carefully in his pocket. Then keep believing it. The world needs more people like you. On his drive back to the company, the city skyline shimmered ahead of him. But this time, it did not look cold or unreachable. It looked alive. Every window, every street lamp, every reflection seemed to pulse with a quiet truth. When he returned to his office, he framed Leah's drawing and hung it next to the clay pen. His desk was no longer a place of power, it had become a sanctuary of meaning. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in soft amber, Harlow stood at the window with Ethan. The younger man looked out at the glowing city and said, "It is strange. We built a device to remind people to listen, but I think it reminded us too." Harlow nodded. "That is how truth works. It circles back." Ethan smiled. "And it started with a whisper." "Yes," Harlow said quietly. "A whisper that became a world." "Aye." As night fell, he sat down at his desk, opened his journal, and began to write a habit he had picked up from Leah. His handwriting was slow but sure. There will always be noise. But somewhere in that noise, there will always be a voice brave enough to speak softly. And that voice, if heard, can change everything. He closed the journal, placed the pen beside Leah's note, and turned off the lamp. Outside, the city lights glowed against the dark, and somewhere in the distance, in a small home with a golden notebook on her desk, Leah was probably writing again another story, another whisper waiting to find its way to the world. Months passed, and the world continued to change quietly. The whisper band had become part of daily life, not as a gadget but as a gentle reminder that truth still mattered. People used it to record words of love, apologies, and promises. In hospitals, newborns heard the voices of parents saying their first, "I love you." In classrooms, children shared their dreams for a kinder world. Inside Harlow Industries, the hallways echoed not with hurried footsteps but with laughter and purpose. The walls, once lined with numbers and charts, now displayed messages sent by users from all over the country, short, honest sentences glowing in golden letters. "I forgive you. Thank you for believing in me. Kindness is strength. Mr." Harlow often paused to read them, letting the truth of those words fill him more than any prophet ever could. One afternoon, Leah and her mother visited the company for the last time before moving to another city. Leah had grown a little taller, her braids longer, her eyes just as bright. She carried her golden notebook, worn but full of life. "Mr. Harlow," she said, smiling, "I came to say goodbye, but not forever." He knelt to her height. "Goodbyes that carry truth never last forever." "Oh," she grinned. "I am going to start a new story in my new town. It is called The Girl Who Listened First." He laughed softly. "That sounds like someone I know." Before leaving, she handed him one last page from her notebook. On it, she had written, "When people choose to listen, truth never has to shout again." He read the words slowly, then folded the paper carefully. "Leah," he said, his voice warm, "the world will always need your stories." "I will keep writing," she said. "You keep listening." "I promise," he replied. As she walked away, sunlight streamed through the tall windows, turning the floor into pools of gold. The city beyond was alive with movement, but for that moment, everything felt still and right. Mr. Harlow returned to his desk, placed her final note beside the clay pen and the framed quote, and whispered, "Even the smallest voice can rebuild the world." Outside, the day carried her words across the wind, soft and steady proof that truth, once spoken with kindness, never disappears. It simply keeps finding new hearts willing to listen.